you could call it the grand finale of Tunisia's transitional process after the revolution, after the overthrow of the longtime strongman in the nation that sparked the Arab Spring, after the roller coaster ride that was the drafting of a new constitution, at times marred by violence. Beji Caid Essebsi, an 88-year-old former Speaker of Parliament, winning Sunday's presidential election. Violent street protests in the center of the country have greeted this election, protesters accusing the staunchly secularist Essebsi of being a lackey of the old regime. On the campaign trail, he'd warned that a vote for the outgoing interim head of state, Youssef, was a ballot for extremist Salafist Islamists, end quote. Bygones be bygones now, though, and Marzouki has congratulated Essebsi. Beyond the campaign rhetoric, we'll ask how Tunisia succeeded where others like Egypt and Libya failed these past 4 years, and whether a revolution started by the self-immolation of a desperate street vendor can fulfill its promise. Today in the France 24 debate, after Tunisia's elections, with us, Tunisia analyst and columnist Adnane Ben Youssef. Thanks for being with us. And thanks for joining us from Monaco, Lotfi MAKTOUF, the founder of advocacy group Al Madania. The France 24 debate, where you can join the conversation on Facebook and on Twitter, our hashtag F24debate. The final tally announced a few hours ago, 55% of the vote for Beji Caid Essebsi, the first free and fair presidential election since the country gained its independence from France in 1956. Kathy Clifford has the story.
Tunisian electoral authorities announced the man who'll be president as the country's democratic transition comes to an end and a new chapter begins.
The Commission announces the victory of Mr. Mohamed Beji Caid Essebsi in the 2014 presidential election.
He beat rival candidate and incumbent President Youssef Marzouki with 55.68% of the vote against 44.32%. With over 1.7 million votes, Essebsi becomes the first president freely elected by Tunisians since independence from France in 1956. He was an official under former President Ben Ali's one-party administration before the 2011 popular uprising. Essebsi's now rebranded himself as a technocrat. His secular party, Call for Tunisia, gained popularity amid a backlash against the country's transitional Islamist government, which many voters blamed for turmoil after 2011. Incumbent Marzouki had blasted Essebsi as a remnant of the former administration, but has now congratulated him on his victory. Following the results, protesters in Hama took to the streets shouting no to the old regime and clashed with police. The 88-year-old now has his work cut out, convincing some voters he's the right man to lead the country into a new political era.
All right, let me begin with you, Lotfi MAKTOUF. Those protesters crying no to the old regime. Is the 88-year-old Essebsi a member of the old guard?
Maybe, but the people in their majority voted for him. Who's not old guard? And, what happened on 14th of January is so sudden that it's not a clear-cut just change of equipment. This is a regime which fell dramatically, and a new regime came in its place, first revolution and so on. So there were some people, there's a bureaucracy. We are people, and obviously in a country like Tunisia, and for the longest time, young people who were 23 old never knew anyone but Ben Ali. And maybe they were in their scouts. Does it mean that they're old regime as well? I think it's more of a state of mind. People have their reasons. They'd rather go, protect their family. People were more courageous in, of course, promoting human rights and defending with their lives and their well-being the causes of freedom. But not everyone chose the same path to fight. What's important today, I think, is that first, the mere result, the figure of 55, is wonderful because it's credible. Enough with the 99.9% and enough of just lying to everyone around and having the Western allies also condoning and supporting the 99.9%. This is democracy. It's messy, but at least it prevents dictatorship from coming back.
All right, so a personal question. Did you vote for Essebsi?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And why so?
Because, look, Tunisia is, in your earlier program, which is a very good, actually, a good summary of the situation, you mentioned that Tunisia won and succeeded where other countries like Libya and Egypt and others failed. This is due to what we call a Tunisian exception. There were several ingredients which make the fabric of Tunisia different from others. And between the two, I found myself, and of course the majority obviously, closer to the values Beji Caid Essebsi protect and develop and promise to cherish and uphold. These are that we're all Muslims in our majority, but we're not Islamists. There's a difference between Islam and Islamism. And what we really want to worry about is that we are Tunisians. There is such a thing as the Tunisian nation for the past 3,000 years. And frankly, they couldn't identify with the Muslim Brotherhood rhetoric or narrative. This has been perceived by majority as a form of occupation, at least conceptually, you know. And
okay, but at the end of the day, and I'm gonna at the end of the day, the Islamists playing the game of electoral politics, not fielding a candidate for the presidential election. I want to bring in Adnane Ben Youssef on this. There's a reaction coming into us on Facebook. Abdul Gaf saying, "Congrats to the president-elect and all Tunisians. May the victory be sealed with development and good governance." Your thoughts on this presidential election, Adnane Ben Youssef?
I think that it's a good step forward for the country. Today, there are a lot of people, a lot of Tunisian people that feel quite citizen, quite interested in democracy, and a lot of people and more people are trusting democracy than trusting any other thing.
Did you see, Adnane, did you see this election in the way that Lotfi did? Basically coming down to a choice between secularists and Islamists?
Actually, of course, I quite agree with that point of view. I think that the Islamist party even have tried, first of all, to break this secular country, this secular state. But I think they came to reason. They finally came to reason because even in the Muslim Brotherhood, there have been a divergence regarding this secularism. They found themselves with secularism, and that's the positive point, that almost the main political forces came to secularism by evidence.
And we can take a look at the breakdown of the vote. And there have been, as we saw in that report earlier by Kathy Clifford, protests in the south of the country. When you look at the provisional tally, you see that the south voted differently from the more urban north. The votes in the south going to former human rights activist, the transitional president, Youssef Marzouki. Lotfi MAKTOUF, that north-south divide, what does it tell you?
Well, first it tells me that in spite of denying vehemently that Ennahda did not support Marzouki, this demonstrates that it did, because the Islamist territory is essentially in the south. But I would like to point out something, that territory is one thing, density is another thing, number one. And more importantly is that the area which is where my foundation is active, which is the northwest area, where most of the poverty and exclusion is obvious, turned towards a technical, modern solution, illustrated by Beji Qaid Essebsi's
Yes, but Lotfi
banner.
MAKTOUF, Sidi Bouzid, the town where it all started, the protests, it's in the south, and the south is where there's the more disenfranchised.
True, but I'm not sure that Sidi Bouzid actually, in its majority, voted for Mr. Marzouki. But be that as it may, there is, of course, something to worry about. And actually, even the Qaid Essebsi's team recognized that they neglected that part of the country. And many people are saying the first trip to Beji Qaid Essebsi should be to that area, which has been excluded for the longest time. Remember, Gafsa has been theater for so many violent demonstrations for the past 20 years. And the business model, the economic model Tunisia chose after Bourguiba was based, unfortunately, on corruption, on just excluding most of the people and concentrating the activities first on what's called the Sahel, which is the area going from Sfax basically to Tunis, and focusing essentially on gathering wealth for the happy few. But that model must change, and I think the people is there to watch for the offer and to wait for what's going to happen concretely, economically, and on the ground of safety and security. But you are right that, of course, there is an obvious, not division, I would say, but a reading of a clear difference in behaving and in thinking. And this must be addressed
by the next government. You mentioned that wait for things to improve, and it's been nearly 4 years. Some people saying that people are growing impatient, not with the two candidates, but with the whole process. 59% turnout in the second round, down from 70%. For those who did turn out, they say it was well worth it. Let's take a listen. All right. Those showing up at the ballot box saying that they were pleased. Adnane Ben Youssef, let me ask you on this. When you think back 4 years, how do you think it's going now?
It's as I'm saying, it's a good step forward. The fourth years were really hard, and we a lot of time we lose time, and we lost time, and a lot of unnecessary debates about identity, about the society, about the state. A lot of debate about who is revolutionary, who is not revolutionary. I think that what happened today in some places in the south, actually, it's not so huge as it may seem. But I think that what happens is the expression of these unnecessary debates about identity. I think that Mr. Marzouki has a clear responsibility on that, because he led a campaign on dividing people upon regionalism, upon identity, upon things that should not be should not have place in a political campaign.
But didn't Essebsi go too far when he brands anybody who casts a ballot for Marzouki an extremist Salafist Islamist?
Of course, also I think that there is a shared responsibility from Mr. Marzouki when he said that the other side are counter-revolutionary or reverse revolutionary, and from the other side, from Mr. Beji Qaid Essebsi, when he threatened all the people voting for Mr. Marzouki as being extremist, as being radicalist, which is not true. There are some of people who sustained and who supported Mr. Marzouki that, of course, are people who could be, who are really violent or extremist, and this is an error from Mr. Marzouki, but a lot of people came from a secular point of view that
also
have
supported
a respectable point of view on the situation, and Mr. Beji Qaid Sibsi have completely been missing that point.
Final point, Adnane. 88 years old. Is that too old to be president?
I don't think the question is a question of age. There are a lot of people who've been, even in France, there are some presidents who've been quite advanced in age. But I think it's a question of personality. It's a question of being able to lead the country. And I think that there is a party with Mr. Beji Qaid Sibsi, and there is a political situation that is simple to, let's say, that is asking a lot of consensus, and I think this person could build consensus even at this age.
All right, so the proof will be in the pudding. Adnane Ben Youssef, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank as well Lotfi MAKTOUF. Thank you for being with us. Stay with us. There's more to come in the France 24 debate. After the break, we'll be looking at how Hollywood got hacked and what are the repercussions as we see this brewing war of words now between Washington and North Korea, accused of being responsible.